And welcome to it, and thanks for being with us here on Deck. I'm Brett Hollander, and today we're going back to July 25 of last year. So not too far back in the vault, but a fun game last year, a marathon game when the Orioles took on the LA Angels in Anaheim. The game went for over 6 hours, 6 hours and 19 minutes to be exact, a 16-inning wild affair where the Orioles, they held on to win 10-8 over the Angels, but they did it in a peculiar fashion. For the first time ever, a position player earned the save. His name, Stevie Wilkerson, who puts the super in super utility. And that's what Stevie Wilkerson represented last year to the Baltimore Orioles, pitching in 4 games last season, including a 16th inning, 2-run save. Pretty incredible for a position player who can play second, short, third, left, center, right, you name it. Wilkerson, who's also a switch hitter, by the way, he played everywhere and did everything. By the way, he did it 10 home runs last year, too. 10 home runs and 1 save. And he was told in the 16th inning that he would, in fact, get the ball to nail it down.
We had just run out of pitchers after Tanner came in, throwing 2 innings for 2 consecutive nights, and we were completely out of arms. So when we came back into the dugout, he said, "Hey, you got the next inning, you good?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And at that time, the game was tied, and then VR comes up and hits the 2-run jack. And Hyder, I was on deck. I think I was about to hit, and then I came back in, and he looked at me. He's like, "You still got this?" I was like, "Yeah, bro, let's go." So yeah, that's kind of how it went down. But it was a wild game. I was doing an interview a few weeks ago and talking about it a little bit too. But up until the extra innings of that game, it was already pretty crazy. I botched the ball going back on it on the warning track and kind of misplayed it a little bit and put us down by a couple runs, or a run, I think. And then the next inning in the 8th, I came back up and hit a game-tying double. So it was pretty wild before extra innings. And then, we all know how the extra innings went for another 2 hours or something. And then, Hyder giving me the ball there at the end was it was pretty special. It was awesome, and it's almost even more fun to reminisce about. So yeah, man, it's an unbelievable memory.
So Stevie Wilkerson gets a couple of outs, throwing about 55 miles per hour. Not something you see every day in a major league game. You don't see that much in a little league game. Stevie Wilkerson, to earn that save, had to get one final out, and the batter he had to get out was Albert Pujols.
1-2 delivery on the way. Pujols waiting on it. That's shallow center field. It's Santander, and they got it! And Wilkerson gets the save. And the Orioles have won a 10-8 ball game in 16 innings. Unbelievable.
And now let's bring on my podcast partner, Mr. Jeff Arnold, who is my co-host of Orioles Magic, the podcast. And our guest coming out on Friday will be Stevie Wilkerson. We've just had a chance to hear from Stevie and to talk about his very compelling season, Jeff, where, let's face it, Stevie Wilkerson did a little bit of everything, and he's someone you go back a long time with.
I remember him his first year in the Carolina League, and offensively, I know it was a bit of a challenging year for him, and then he had the offseason to get things back on track. And in his second season, not only was he a lot better offensively, but he was moving all over the diamond, and it would better set him up to eventually pick up a spot on the Orioles. And last year, he was as versatile as it would get. I mean, you asked him, he's got like 10 to 14 different gloves right now, including his very own pitching glove. But last year, he used Jimmy Yacobonis's to close out a 16-inning game that went over 6 hours.
So he earns the save at Anaheim, but pitches 4 times, plus a switch hitter, hits 10 home runs last year. As you mentioned, played all around the field and made some really nice plays in the outfield. Led the Orioles in games in center field, which is shocking given his history. And you've known this for some time, but he was a spectacular high school football player in a sports hotbed in Georgia growing up. Probably could have played big-time college football. He was a quarterback of his high school team. I mean, he is a rare athlete.
He's a freak athlete. And even today, and he'll say that he's not the best golfer out there, but just hearing him how he would play golf and where he's like, well, I drive right-handed and putt left-handed, I think is what he told us. And then he can go from, hockey, he played it left-handed, and then baseball, he's a switch hitter, and tennis, he played it right-handed. Like he goes back and forth between all these different things. He says he's not ambidextrous though, because apparently he throws as well as I do right-handed. So so he's not ambidextrous, but I think they might call it two-handed. I had someone else walk me through this. I'm like, well, you can do this and this and this and all these other things. So I was like, so are you ambidextrous? And this, I can't remember who it was, but they said, no, but I'm what they call two-handed. So maybe that would be the way to describe Wilkerson, is that he's two-handed or it's something along those lines. But either way, freak athlete, can do a little bit of everything, and he helped the Orioles out in a bunch of different ways last year when they needed it, and that included on the mound.
Yeah, and check out this full interview. It will drop tomorrow. Our conversation with Stevie Wilkerson, who's just a fun guy, but has a very interesting story to tell about his upbringing, about his time in baseball, college, high school, you name it. Stevie Wilkerson tomorrow on Orioles Magic, the podcast. You can get that at Orioles.com/podcast or wherever podcasts are downloaded. And we have some great old episodes to catch up on too, Jeff.
Great old episodes, which include Eddie Murray. Make sure you go back and listen to that one and hear him talk about hitting that 500th home run. That was a great one. Rick Sutcliffe is one of my favorite ones that we've had a chance to do. He started the first game ever at Camden Yards and threw that complete game. And he threw the game to Chris Hoyles, who we also just talked to as well. And that one dropped on Monday. So make sure to check that episode out. But tons of great conversations. And we span different eras of Orioles history as well. And I think that's maybe what has made this endeavor so cool, is that we've explored different times in Orioles history. And then you can hear about the days when the Orioles were playing some of their best baseball ever with Boop Powell. You can hear about that 1983 season. You can hear about the curse of the Andino and with Robert Andino, the first episode that we've ever did. There's a little bit of something for everybody in this podcast. And
Jim Palmer, our next guest, that comes out on Monday. So check it out. Orioles Magic, the podcast. Jeff Arnold, thank you so much.
Brett, great to be with you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Great stuff with Stevie Wilkerson and what we had a chance to talk about on the podcast. And it's worth noting again that here's Wilkerson, who had a pretty lengthy minor league career. He has a really interesting rookie season. I mean, he's a commodity for any big league team because he can play so many positions, because he's a switch hitter, and he hits 10 home runs last year. And not only does he get into 4 games as a pitcher and gets a save, which is extraordinary in a scenario like this, and we'll see the whole game here coming up, but also Stevie Wilkerson made some pretty good defensive plays, and maybe the defensive play of the year last year. Final game of the season, Fenway Park, Boston. You may remember.
That ball is tagged, right field, back warning track, at the wall, up and he caught it! Unbelievable catch! Stevie Wilkerson, one of the greatest catches you will ever see.
How about that play at Fenway Park? Stevie Wilkerson did it all last year for the Orioles. Well, learning is important year-round, and that is why we're excited to offer our fans the Summer Slugger program. Summer Slugger is a fun, interactive online course that uses the game of baseball to help kids ages 8 to 11 maintain their math and literacy skills during the summer months. Summer Slugger is a continuous and engaging learning experience that uses the game of baseball to prepare students of all backgrounds to enter the next school year on track. To learn more and register with code Orioles, visit summerslugger.com/Orioles. Well, that does it for this edition of On Deck. Coming up on Sunday at noon, we will go back to the 1983 World Series, Game 3 to be exact, when a veteran, Jim Palmer, helped the Orioles go on their way to win their 3rd World Championship. Palmer, a part of all 3. We talked to Jim Palmer. We will relive Game 3 of that World Series when the Orioles eventually defeated the Philadelphia Phillies. That'll be a whole lot of fun on Sunday. But right now, we go back to 2019, late July, Anaheim, California. Orioles Angels in a 16-inning, 6+ hour marathon where they had a position player act like he was, Greg Olson, to try and nail down a save. You won't want to miss it. It's coming up right now. Enjoy it, everybody.